Hi everyone, welcome back to Roam Your Roots. In this video, I am going to continue mapping my Irish ancestors. Now, if you missed my last video, I had mapped all the Lynagh families who lived in County Donegal listed in Griffith's Valuation. In this video, I want to add to that surname map that I made a little bit more by researching the Lynagh families listed in the Tithe Applotment books and compare them to the ones in Griffith's Valuation, making this really big comprehensive map, and I'm pretty excited about it. Now, if you aren't familiar with the Tithe Applotment books, they were similar to Griffith's Valuation in that their point was to assess the value of land in order to determine the amount of tithes or taxes that were supposed to be paid on that land. Now, the Tithe Applotment books are great because they were taken in Donegal in 1828, so nearly or exactly 30 years prior to Griffith's Valuation. So if your family is like mine and they emigrated before Griffith's Valuation was taken, you might want to check the Tithe Applotment books to see if you can glean any information from them. Now, the problem with the Tithe books is that they are not comprehensive, and this has to do with the way that taxes were paid in Ireland at the time. So for example, taxes were owed on potato patches but not grassland. So anyone holding grassland property at the time would not be listed in the tithe books. So they're not comprehensive. You cannot be certain that you're going to find your family in them, but as you'll see in this video, I did get some pretty interesting information from them by comparing them with Griffith's Valuation. So I'm really excited to show you this map that I made and walk you through all the little tips and tricks that I have in researching and mapping out the Tithe Applotment books. Now, if you like this series that I'm doing on mapping your Irish ancestors, or you like any of the other videos that I post and they're valuable to you, I would really appreciate it if you could like this video, maybe leave a comment, maybe subscribe to my channel if you aren't yet subscribed. It helps me actually a lot, and I would very much appreciate it. I love finding out what you learn if you try these projects yourself. So if you do try this project, please let me know how it goes in the comments down below. I would love to know. Okay, so here we are on the Google My Maps that I made from Griffith's Valuation. If you haven't seen this video, I'll link it down below. So these are all the locations that I found the Lynagh surname listed in County Donegal in Griffith's Valuation. As you can see, Donegal spans this whole area here, and the Lynaghs were clearly congregated in a very specific part of County Donegal. And I'm hoping that the mapping that I'm going to do today in this video with Tithe Applotment books will confirm what I found in Griffith's Valuation. So I'm going to add those to this map. The first thing that I want to do actually though is rename this layer. Now, if you aren't familiar with how Google My Maps works, you can make different layers. So if I make this the Griffith's Valuation layer, I can then uncheck it and it disappears, and I can make another layer on the Tithe Applotment books, so I can have them show up separately on the map or show up together on the map with different colors. I love using Google My Maps for all genealogy mapping projects. I think it's just the greatest resource you can have. Let me just rename this layer at Griffith's Valuation, or just GV, and I'm going to start a new layer. And this layer is going to be the Tithe Applotment books. So to get to the Tithe Applotment books, they are located online at titheapplottmentbooks.nationalarchives.ie. They are held by the National Archives of Ireland, and they are entirely searchable online. So here we are at the homepage. It gives a little explanation as to what the Tithe Applotment books are, and over here you can search them. So we're going to search for Lynagh, and we're going to do Donegal, the whole county of Donegal, and just see what happens. As you can see, you can also specify by parish and townland, but here we are just going to do Donegal. So let's search. And as you can see, there are 7 results that come up, much less than the 23 that came up in Griffith's Valuation, but 23 was still very little. So you'll see that it gives the townland, the parish, the county, and the year that it was recorded. So all these Lynaghs in Donegal were recorded in 1828. Now that is very important because my family were actually living in Donegal. They hadn't emigrated yet in 1828. And the head of the household, the father, his name was John. So one of these 2 Johns could very well be my John. But as I explained in the intro, they also might not be my John. These books are very not comprehensive, they're sparse. So it's really a guessing game, but I'm hoping mapping these out will just give me a little bit more of an understanding of where the Lynaghs were in County Donegal. So let's start with the first one. It says that the townland is Crookbowen. Now I'm back on townlands.ie, which I introduced you to in my last video, and we are going to search for Crookbowen. Oh, I already searched for it. And see what it turns up with, which is nothing. So that means that it was either transcribed wrong, but not to worry, I have a trick up my sleeve as to how to find out what this Crookbowen refers to. So you'll see that there are two people listed here as living in this area of Crookbowen, John and Michael. So I'm going to go back to my map that I made here and look at these clusters. I talked about this in my last video, how there are clusters of people living near each other. And I want to see if any of these clusters include a John and a Michael. In Umla, there is a John and a Michael. This John and Michael may very well be the same John and Michael listed here. Now, it doesn't say Umla as the townland, but there's something that I want to check. If we go to townlands.ie and we search for Umla, we're going to click on the townland in Miva Parish because that's where we are. And it will actually tell us sub-townlands. And so we do see a sub-townland called Crookbowen, which is suspiciously similar to Crookbowen. So to check if this is in fact the same place and the same John and Michael, I can click on Crookbowen here and see where it is. And I want to compare this to the two houses that I mapped for John and Michael in Griffith's valuation. So if we look at this, it says that Crookbowen is just south of Carragart on this main road here, and it's just south of these two little streets that intersect with that main road. So if we go back to the map, we're looking in Umla, which I believe is this one, yep. Here's the main road, and I did map two houses here for John and Michael, and they are just south of these two little roads. So we have actually solved the mystery. We know that Crookbowen is actually today referred to as Crookbowen, and we know that the two John and Michaels listed in the Tithe Applotment books recorded in 1828 are most likely the same John and Michaels recorded in Griffith's valuation decades later. So because we know that the John Lina listed in the Tithe Applotment books in Crookbowen is the same John Lina listed in the Griffith's valuation, this tells me that this is not my John Lina, because my John Lina had left before Griffith's valuation was taken. Now this is information that I would not have been able to infer if I hadn't mapped the Tithe Applotment books. So I have colored those pins for John and Michael as purple to indicate that they're both listed in Griffith's valuation and the Tithe Applotment books, and I also wrote a note also listed in Tithe Applotment. Next we have John Lina, who lived supposedly in Drumnomona. Now just like Crookbowen, there is no townland called Drumnomona in Miva Parish, so I did the same thing with Crookbowen. I went on townlands.ie and I found that there is actually a location in Umla called Drumnomona, and I thought that was too much of a coincidence, so I checked the Tithe Applotment books to see if it could have been a transcription error, not Drumnomona, but maybe Drumnomona, and what we see is that it likely was. If we zoom in here, I definitely read Drumnomona in all of these, not Drumnomona. It is a transcription error, and that is very common in the Tithe Applotment books. Now, actually, there were a few Drumnomonas that townlands.ie came up with. There's Drumnomona Hill, and then Drumnomona Upper and Lower. I'm not sure which it was referring to, so I just put it there on Drumnomona Hill. And so that is why I have colored him red, to indicate that he was listed only in Tithe Applotment book. So the fact that this John Lina in Drumnomona is present in the Tithe Applotment books but not Griffith's valuation could mean a few different things. It could mean that he either passed away between the time that the Tithe books were taken and when Griffith's valuation was taken. It could mean that by the time Griffith's valuation was taken, he was fairly elderly, so maybe he had moved in with one of his children. He wasn't the landholder at the time it was taken, so he wasn't recorded. Or it could mean that he emigrated. So that John Lina in Drumnomona is very interesting to me because that could very well be my John Lina. Now that isn't to say that there weren't other John Linas living in the area at the time. As I said before, the Tithe Applotment books are not comprehensive. They left a lot of people out. So there very well could have been other John Linas living in this area that are mine. But the fact that this John Lina is listed in the Tithe books but not in Griffith's valuation gives me pause, and it's something that I would want to try to research a little bit more. Okay, so there I have gone and recolored John and Michael actually here. So now the pink ones are overtaking the blue ones, but you'll see if I uncheck Tithe Applotment books, we have blue, and if I recheck it, and if I recheck it, the red pops up. So now I can see both fairly clearly. The next one we have here is Patrick Lina, who lived in the townland of Gortnabraid, which I actually also already did. You'll see this big red outline here that's been on the map. This is the townland of Gortnabraid that I mapped pretty shoddily. And if you want to see a video on how I map these townlands, you can watch my previous video on mapping Griffith's Valuation. But in Griffith's Valuation, there was no Patrick Lina living in the townland of Gortnabraid. In fact, this is a brand new townland that I've added to this map, which is why I colored it red to distinguish it from the Griffith's Valuation townlands. And unfortunately, unlike Griffith's Valuation, I cannot map exactly where in this townland Patrick lived. So we just have this outline of a townland, but that is good enough for me. We're just adding to this map a little bit more. Next, we have Daniel and Patrick Lina of Tulnagarin. Now, similarly to Crookbowen, there is no townland of Tulnagarin, so let's see if there is a Daniel and Patrick clustered together in Griffith's Valuation that I could go off of. Now, looking at these names here, there are no Daniel and Patricks that live together. So the next thing that I would do would be to look at the Daniels and Patricks separately one by one. I want to see where all the Daniels lived, I want to see where all the Patricks lived, and I want to look at those townlands and see if there are place names within those townlands that could be Tulnagarin. So the first Daniel or Patrick that we see on this list in Griffith's Valuation is this Daniel Lina living in the townland of Turlowen. He lived with some Hughes, a James, here's another Hugh. So let's take a look at the townland of Turlowen and see if that townland encompasses anything that may be Tulnagarin. So we're back on townlands.ie, let's search for Turlowen, and we'll scroll down here and take a look at the sub-townlands. And what do you know? There's a sub-townland called Tulnagarn, which, I mean, that just has to be Tulnagarin. It's too much of a coincidence. So that was shockingly easy. I've just been very lucky, clearly. So we're going to click on Tulnagarn, and we'll zoom in here and see where it is. It looks like it's just off this main road next to Cairgart and on the south side of the road. Oh, and Tulnagarn Hill is just south of it. So let's take a look at the map we made. Now here is the main road, and it said Tulnagarn is on the south side of the road. Now, interestingly, that is very close to all these other pins that I made. Now, the Daniel Lina that I did map in Griffith's Valuation lived here in this plot of land. So it's unclear if this could be the same Daniel or two different Daniels. It could very well have been the same Daniel. This could have been the father Daniel and this the son. Really, there's no way of knowing. But regardless, I'm going to map Tulnagarn on this and paint it red. Okay, and there I have mapped Daniel and Patrick Lina. Now, even though we can't be certain if this is the same Daniel who lived up here, something that we can probably infer is that the Daniel and Patrick Lina that lived here in the Tithe Applotment books are closely related to the other Linas that lived just next to them. Okay, so the last one we have here is Patrick Lina living in Terra. Now, Terra seems suspiciously similar to the townland that we have mapped from Griffith's Valuation down here called Torah, and indeed, the person living in this townland was a Patrick Lina. Now, we can't be certain if this is the same Patrick Lina as in the Tithe Applotment books. The one in the Tithe books could have very well been the father of this Patrick, or it could have been the same Patrick, and really there's no way to know. But regardless, I'm going to map our final Tithe Applotment books Lina right here in Torah, right next to the other Patrick that we have here. And we are going to color this the pink color that we use for the Tithe books, and just move this Patrick down here. And there we have it. There is the final map encompassing both the Tithe books and Griffith's Valuation. Now you can see that we can go ahead and uncheck Tithe books, and there's only Griffith's Valuation. We can recheck Tithe books and uncheck Griffith's valuation, and there are the Tithe books. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. I hope this was helpful. As I've said before, the Tithe books are not comprehensive at all. I got lucky also in that Lynagh is a very unusual surname, not only in Ireland, but in Donegal specifically. I mean, there were 7 results that came up, so I was lucky. If you have a more common surname, I'm not sure how well this is gonna help you, but I hope that it does. I hope you can do the same project. It was really helpful for me, and it was probably the most fun I have had in making a genealogy map in the longest time. You know that Roam Your Roots is all about geographic genealogy, mapping your ancestors. This is my jam. So if you like these projects, please consider subscribing to this channel. Leave me a comment down below if you try this and like this video. It would help me immensely. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.